The 7 AMG-tuned rarest and weirdest cars that aren't Mercedes. When you hear AMG, you probably picture high-performance Mercedes sedans tearing up the autobahn. But what if I told you that AMG's magic isn't limited to Mercedes? That's right. Some of the most unexpected and downright bizarre vehicles have received the AMG-tuned treatment, making them faster, sharper, and more exhilarating. From a Japanese econobox to a British sports car, these machines prove that AMG's expertise goes beyond the three-pointed star. In this list, we'll explore great AMG-tuned cars that break the mold. Cars that you'd never expect to have a Falterbach DNA. Whether it's a lightweight sports car, an everyday hatchback, or something even stranger, these non-Mercedes creations show AMG's engineering prowess in the most surprising ways. Think you know them all? But no. Stick around. And don't forget to like, share, and drop a comment on Muscle Car Masters. Lotus Amira. Yeah, we'll get to that AMG Civic. But first, Lotus. This brand hasn't made its own engines in over 25 years. They started borrowing from Rover, then Toyota, and now AMG. That's right. The base spec Lotus Amira packs a 2.0-liter AMG Turbo 4 straight out of the ballistic A45 AMG hot hatch. And before we even get to the engine, can we just appreciate how drop-dead gorgeous this car is? Perfect proportions, smooth curves mixed with sharp edges. This thing looks like a $200,000 exotic, but it's a fraction of the price. The only thing that doesn't scream supercar is the engine, right? Just 4 cylinders? Well, hold on. This AMG-tuned monster originally cranks out 420 horsepower, but Lotus had to nerf it down to 360 horsepower just so it wouldn't overshadow the pricier V6 version, which makes 400 horsepower. Yep, the cheaper car had to be weakened to protect the hierarchy. Makes no sense, but here's the kicker. You can unlock the full 470 horsepower with just a software tune. Now, some people moan about the 8-speed dual clutch being the only option for the AMG engine, no manual. But let's be real, the Amira is a modern, everyday sports car. The AMG version is lighter, torquey, and better balanced than the V6, making it the better driver's car. And if you want more power, a simple software tweak turns it into a 470 horsepower supercar slayer. Chrysler Crossfire SRT6. Let's kick this off with a joke. What do you get when you cross a Chrysler with a Mercedes-Benz? Well, according to the Chrysler Crossfire, you get a car that's almost all Mercedes and not much Chrysler. Definitely not the partnership you'd expect. Back in 1998, when Mercedes and Chrysler formed their alliance, it was supposed to be a marriage made in heaven, a true merger of equals. The idea was to share technology, resources, and support each other. But guess what? Mercedes didn't exactly hold up their end of the bargain. Take the Chrysler Crossfire, for instance. While it looks like a unique Chrysler, underneath, it's almost identical to the Mercedes SLK. It was even built in Germany, so you'd think Chrysler got a fair deal, right? Wrong. Instead of getting the latest SLK platform, Chrysler was handed the older one, which had already been out for 4 years. How's that for a merger of equals? Now, let's talk about the SRT6 version of the Crossfire. This is where Chrysler tries to show off a bit, slapping a supercharged 3.2-liter V6 from the SLK AMG into the Crossfire, cranking out 335 horsepower. Cool, right? Well, in the SLK AMG, that same engine churns out 355 horsepower. So, while Chrysler is working with an engine that's almost there, Mercedes takes the lead again. And why is the Chrysler Crossfire one of the rarest and weirdest cars that isn't a Mercedes? Because this car is an almost identical copy of the Mercedes SLK, just with Chrysler's branding slapped on it. Sure, it looks the part, but underneath it's still Mercedes, just not quite as good as the real deal. It's a reminder that sometimes the real action happens in the fine details that don't always make it to the surface. Pagani Cars. Pagani has always been synonymous with performance, and a key part of that performance has been the AMG V12 engine under the hood of every model, from the original Zonda to the latest Utopia. So, why AMG? The connection goes back to legendary Formula One driver Juan Manuel Fangio, who was a close friend of Pagani founder Horacio Pagani. Fangio, a Mercedes driver, helped Pagani secure the first V12s from Mercedes, starting with the 6.0-liter V12 in the Zonda, tuned by AMG to 450 horsepower. As Pagani pushed boundaries, the Zonda evolved, with the Zonda F getting a 7.3-liter V12 producing 550 horsepower, eventually reaching 760 horsepower. But Pagani wasn't done. There was the 800-horsepower Zonda, then the Huayra, featuring a twin-turbocharged AMG V12 with a wild, unmistakable sound. Now, the Utopia is taking things even further, cranking out a staggering 860 horsepower. Yet, despite the rise of electric cars, every Utopia has already sold out. The raw sound and relentless power of the AMG V12 engine are exactly why Pagani's machines remain some of the rarest, wildest, and most extreme cars on the planet. Isdera Imperator 108i. The Isdera Imperator is one of those cars you just can't ignore, and its backstory is as wild as the car itself. Back in the 1970s, there was a German engineer named Eberhard Schulz. He was working at Porsche, basically the dream job, but secretly, he probably would have swapped it all for a shot at Mercedes. Why? Because on the side, he was building something special, the CW311 concept car. This thing was like Frankenstein on wheels, mixing Porsche parts with a Mercedes V12 engine straight out of the S600. Oh, and those taillights? You guessed it, Mercedes. The design had this weird wedge-shaped look that kind of reminded you of the Mercedes C111, with gull-wing doors straight out of the SLR, and of course, a Mercedes badge slapped on it. Schulz took the car to Mercedes, and they were like, "Nice, but not for us." So, what did he do? He didn't give up. He just built it himself. Enter the Isdera Imperator 108i. Nearly identical to the CW311, it was powered by that same Mercedes V12 and packed with parts from the company itself. Only 30 were made, and while the earlier versions were sleek and futuristic, things got a little weird over time. The later models had a goofy top-mounted periscope, which thankfully got swapped out for regular mirrors, and the body started to get a little thick. The real fun starts under the hood. The early Imperators had regular engines, but the later ones got serious with AMG's 5.6-liter V8, pumping out 422 horsepower and pushing the car to around 190 miles per hour. And get this, some of those later cars even had Mercedes's iconic three-pointed star, even though Mercedes had already said no. Talk about a car that wasn't meant to be, but became a legendary oddball in the world of rare, weird supercars. Mitsubishi Galant AMG. AMG, best known for tuning Mercedes to perfection, once had a more exclusive focus, only working on Mercedes-Benz vehicles. That was until Mitsubishi stepped in and got AMG involved with their lineup. The first was the Mitsubishi Debonair Royale, which got a cosmetic makeover with badges and a body kit. But things got interesting with the Mitsubishi Galant. This time, AMG didn't just slap on some styling tweaks. They made real performance upgrades. The 4G63 2.0-liter engine got new pistons, camshafts, and titanium valve springs, boosting it to 170 naturally aspirated horsepower and an 8,000 RPM redline. Not massive by today's standards, but for the 90s? That was serious. Then Mitsubishi took things a step further, adding a turbo and all-wheel drive to create the VR4, leaving the AMG Galant behind in sheer performance. Only 500 AMG Galants were ever made. And while they were overshadowed by the VR4, fast forward to today, and the AMG Galant has become the real collector's gem. So, the big question, would you take the all-wheel drive, turbocharged VR4, or the ultra-rare, quirky AMG Galant? Aston Martins since 2017. Aston Martin has always been that charming boutique brand, but let's be honest, they've been struggling to stay afloat for years. When the European Union laid down the law and demanded they clean up their engines or pay a hefty fine, Aston was in a tough spot. They didn't have the cash to overhaul their entire lineup. But what they did have was an idea. Slap their logo on a 1.3-liter Toyota IQ. Their CO2 average across the fleet drops to acceptable levels. The only catch? They needed to sell 4,000 of these tiny little hatchbacks per year. And spoiler alert, the Aston Martin Signet didn't exactly fly off the shelves. It was more like trying to sell ice cream in a snowstorm. So, Aston did what any company in need of a bailout would do. They called in AMG. Mercedes had already put a 10% stake in Aston, so it made sense. If AMG helped out, they could save Aston from themselves and protect their own investment. Enter the DB11, DBX, and Vantage, all packed with hand-built AMG V8s. And guess what? It worked. Mercedes not only saved Aston, but also doubled their stake and even appointed a former AMG CEO to lead Aston. Now Aston's engines are something special, way more tuned than your standard Merc. Take the Vantage, for example, which jumped from 510 to 665 horsepower. Then there's the DBX, which cranks out a staggering 707 horsepower. But the cherry on top is the Valhalla supercar, pushing out a mind-blowing 828 horsepower. That's more than any Mercedes AMG model ever made. Aston's now making real profits, and AMG's partnership has definitely worked out in their favor. But before I wrap up, let me tease you with one more strange AMG-powered car that isn't a Mercedes. Any guesses? Here's a hint. It's from Morocco. Honda Civic. Let's talk about one of the most mysterious cars you've probably never heard of. The AMG Civic. Yeah, you read that right. Now, before we dive in, a quick heads up. In certain markets, like South Africa, this high-end Civic goes by the name Honda Ballade, but let's just stick with Civic for simplicity. And here's the kicker. This car is so rare, there's almost no footage or photos of it. Seriously, it's like it doesn't even exist in the digital world, so forgive me if the quality of this section isn't top-notch. So how did an AMG Civic even come to be? Well, it all started when Honda needed a performance model for the South African market. AMG, always open to a challenge, was ready to step in. The conversion process was done in 2 stages: cosmetic changes, like the body kit, or the full deal, cosmetics plus upgraded tires, better suspension, a better exhaust, and a dyno-tuned engine. Now, here's the tricky part. Nobody knows the exact power figures. It's like a secret, and for a good reason. Neither Honda nor AMG will admit they had anything to do with this weird collaboration. Despite both 4th and 5th Gen Civics getting the AMG touch, there's zero mention of it in either company's official records. AMG even has a full page dedicated to the non-Mercedes cars they've worked on, but no sign of the Civic. Honda, on the other hand, is all about the Type R these days and acts like the AMG Civic was some weird fever dream. So, if this video helps bring some attention to those AMG-tuned gems that aren't Mercedes, We might just get to see more info pop up about these great AMG-tuned cars. It's crazy how these hidden treasures often go unnoticed, but that's what makes them so special. That's all I've got for today, folks. Don't forget to hit that follow button, like, and share the channel. And of course, keep cruising through the awesome world of muscle car masters. I'll catch you in the next one. Stay out.